Hello and welcome back to 4th Age Guides. This is a battle guide for the Elven Realm in the 4th Age Total War Dominion of Men, a mod for Rome Total War Barbarian Invasion. In the campaign video, which is on my channel for this faction, I talked about the variety in the Elven unit roster, and so for this battle guide, we're going to be looking not at one, not at two, but three different battle scenarios for the elves. The first one here, as you may be able to tell, is a rather lopsided affair. This involves just two units, but I'll really only be using one, and that is this unit of Noldor Riders, which is a unique unit associated with this general, Glorfindel of Imladris. Now, this is a one-time unit. You never get to train these. They do replenish over time because this is led by a faction family member, but when he sails off into the west, no other family members are going to have this unit. So it behooves you to use them as much as you possibly can. And what I've done, he starts off near Mithlond, and so I've just, for the interest of making this video, marched him over to the nearest large-ish Adunabar stack. And so this has some trolls, some orcs, some basic stuff. This is not going to be a challenge at all. So we're just going to plunge into it here. The other couple of videos, battle replays that we will look at, are set up on the custom battle mechanic for the game, but Glorfindel's unit and the Noldor swords that accompany him are not available on that custom battle setup. So we'll just start the deployment. Before we do, just a quick look here. This is a lovely looking unit, designed as all of the elves are by Webba84. And they have long spears. They also have swords. I love the crested helm that these guys have. And for the sake of completeness, have a look at the Noldor swords. This is a shield wall capable unit. They do not replenish automatically over time, not being family members, of course. But we are going to just let them sit and watch, kind of like groupies, if you will, on the top of this hill. All the family members that have cavalry in this mod are set to skirmish automatically, so we're going to take them off that. Just remember to do that, otherwise the pathfinding is going to be messed up, as your cavalry unit will naturally try to avoid units that are nearby. So in the enemy, we've got some trolls, as we said. This is going to be by far the most dangerous unit for us, but let's just charge into this unit of Uruk swords and see what happens. Alright. Munching through those pretty well. We've got 29 elves in this unit of Noldor Riders. We are being attacked by Grim Spears also, but really this is not a problem for us. We're just going to munch through those. Now the trolls do approach us, and I'm being a little lazy here, kind of showing off, if you will, but as you can see, we cut through all of that. Playing on triple speed, just again for the sake of speed. We've got a couple of other battles to get to here in this video. And it looks actually at this point like the enemy is retreating. Let's just see what we can cut down on the way. Didn't actually go against those trolls. The greatest danger with Glorfindel fighting trolls is actually that the dying trolls will fall on him, and that can happen, so do be aware of that. That is a death sentence. 3 hit points is not going to save you with a troll falling on you. Okay, so actually they're just relocating to this hill, so we will get to see some more fighting. What are we doing? Something like 8 minutes or so far, on triple speed, of course. So far so good. Haven't lost an elf. We are utterly tired though, and if I were playing this for real, I would be taking a bit more care. Since we're utterly tired, may as well run. You can see the AI is reluctant to engage. This unit of Noldor Riders, as well as the Noldor swords, does cause fear. Just take out these dark swords real quick, if possible. These are not, elite units by any means for Adunabar, but okay, tell you what, let's go after the trolls. Let's slow this down just a bit. Let's come in a unit of 12, and you see We are taking some losses, but this is mostly due to the trolls falling on us. So you just want to be aware where Glorfindel is located here. And he may get someone falling on him. So you know what? Let's pull out of here. As much as that would be pretty hilarious to see. The thing, too, about taking a few losses like we just did there is that it ultimately doesn't matter as long as your actual general survives, because those guys will replenish. Okay, so now they are enraged, but I think we killed them. And so that troll falling took out 3 of our riders. So we'll go for these Horsemen of the Shades, although I think they may be retreating at this point. I don't think they're going to stick around. Nope, so we may as well go for the Dark Bows. So again, we only took losses when we were fighting the trolls. I am quite sure that is entirely because of the trolls falling on us, and we're going to get all those guys back within a turn or two. Not that we needed to really look at the statistics screen, but that gives you some idea of how powerful Glorfindel is. And if you pair him, as you should, with some other elven units that you begin with near Mythland, then you're going to do even better, because you can actually take cities, hold them, and so on. So I'd like to actually go back to the main menu here, and we're going to take a look at a couple of different scenarios that I did on the custom battle. We've got a couple of replays. So the first one, the Adunabar matchup, is going to be fairly typical, although this does not involve Glorfindel or the Noldor swords. So this is a more kind of balanced, I guess, elven army. And this is representative of what you're likely to be facing, you know, at some point against a faction like Adunabar. And the battle map setting here, I think, is Southern Greenwood. So you're going to be probably doing a lot of your fighting in and around your territories as you are forced into a defensive role, especially in the early game. And you will tend to be outmatched by these much larger enemy armies. Or you won't be outmatched, you'll be outnumbered. And so what you'll want to do is set up your forces somewhere like this. All of your units get bonuses to fighting in the woods. Let's slow down the gameplay for a little while here and just take a look at some of these units. So I've started off with a front line, a fairly small front line. We've got some Sylvan Axes. This is a tier 2 melee unit. We've got, looks like 1 or 2 units of Threshold troops. And we do have a family member. These are the Elven Retainers that all of your other family members will command. Just in the back here, I've got some Galadrim warriors. These are mail-clad archers with swords as a backup. Very long range. They're a good hybrid unit as well, able to excel in a melee role, especially when they're flanking, but you do want to be careful that they don't take unnecessary losses. In the back, Greenwood bows are popping up. I think I brought 4 of them, 3 or 4 Greenwood bows. These are the archers that you can train at tier 2 in the northern Mirkwood regions. Just in front of them here in the Lorien and southern Mirkwood, so to speak, Emon-Lank, you will have these Galadrim scouts. They are a bit less well-armored than the Galadrim warriors, but still quite effective. Another elven unit in the back here, Greenwood guards. The difference between these and the hooded Greenwood bows is that these guys carry a 2-handed axe, so they're going to be effective against armor in the melee. And then right in the back, we've got just a couple of Elven units. These are Elven hunters with javelins. I do have a unit of Imladris lancers in the back here, hiding in the woods at the moment. Wonderful unit. You can only train these at Rivendell, as you might expect. And finally, over onto the left, I have this couple of units of Elven scouts, horse archers. Now, these are not excellent at charging and riding into melee, but they will surprise you because they can be used in that role at need. I would prefer to lean on those Imladris lancers, but you are not going to have a ton of those. So what we've got here is a fairly typical Adunabar army with a mix of orc champions, cultic troops like Swords of the Shadow, some cavalry, some grim spears. I do over on the left wing, they have some Uruk berserkers, which can be a very damaging unit. But the best thing to do here is to shoot them down, and your elven units can stand up to a lot of punishment even from these very intimidating units. Also have some Uruk swords as well. So they're trying to find a good way to hit us, and at this point what I've done is I've surrounded that unit of orc champions and smashed into them with my scouts, and then we're pulling the cavalry back so we don't take any losses. And we haven't taken any losses from our cavalry here. So as soon as these units separate, we've got some Spears of the Shadow that could be a problem. I'm pulling my Imladris Lancers back in. They'll easily be able to handle these Horsemen of the Shades, and then setting up my Elven Scouts again just to pour those arrows into the flanks and support my Lancers. Over on my right, we've got a really heavy concentration of enemies right where I want them to be. This is my my general unit, your Elven Retainers, your family members. These are a rock-solid unit. They have spears as well as swords, so you can switch those out accordingly by holding the Alt button. And they're going to do just fine against all of this, even with these Orc Champions, Uruk Spears, Berserkers, and so on. These guys are getting fired on. They're having to deal with an extremely tough Elven unit, so they'll be just fine. I haven't taken out the Elvelyn Hunters yet, but we will soon. They're ready, and they're almost within throwing range, so we're going to wait. With your Elvelyn units, again, these are the Mannish troops that are serving alongside the Elves. You want to be a little more careful than you would with your Elven troops. Your Elven troops are going to stand up to ridiculous amounts of punishment, but your Mannish troops are not. So you want to use them in a flanking role, kind of in a support role, keep them out of danger, because you don't want to have to be constantly retraining them. They will take a lot of losses, and you want to use them for garrison and just to bolster your forces. At this point, we're starting to see some routing, and I could have probably brought these guys in a bit sooner, but I wanted to make sure they used up all of their arrows first, and we're just basically pursuing everybody at this point and pushing them into a rout. Over on my left, we did get stuck into this melee for longer than I wanted. We've got Spears of the Shadow. This is a higher tier, I think it's a tier 3 spear unit for a Dunabar, and so this is not something that you want to take lightly, but you know, it certainly was not something that we couldn't deal with. So the Imladris Lancers, I think we managed to keep most of our men. I think we lost one here, and a couple of Elven Scouts, but that's really not a huge problem. And at this point, we've just got the Dark Bows to deal with and to chase down these last routers and escort the general off the field. And that will be the end of this this battle replay. So this is, again, a type of battle that you're probably likely to see with your Eastern forces. So that's why we had the Greenwood bows, the Galadrim, and those Imladris Lancers, although they are not necessarily east of the Misty Mountains, they are, because they are located right there in Rivendell, you can easily get them over to your eastern territories by the mid-game or so. So there was that battle. Let's take a look now at a different replay, and this one is going to be over on the western side of your realm. So this one is taking place against Tharbad. Remember, in the west, you're dealing with basically Mythland. You've got 3 settlements that are in the Lindon region at the start of the campaign, but 2 of those 3 are never going to be really training centers. Mythland will, and then you will also have access eventually to Rivendell. So I've also thrown in some Imladris Lancers for this army, just getting them set up here. One of the differences, though, because this western side of your territory is going to not have that many training centers, I went with a much higher complement of Elvelyn troops. And as soon as things get a little closer, we'll slow it down and take a look at those. So in the back here, again, the Elvelyn troops are in the back line. I've got some Elvelyn Wardens. These are a tier 2 sword unit, rather sturdy, despite the fact that they are, they don't have the multiple hit points that the Elven units do. We also have these very fine-looking Elvelyn Kinsmen. These are available only in a couple of settlements. One is, what is it, Enumenas, and I believe the other is Dol Amroth, if you ever feel like getting down there. Don't quote me on that. I haven't actually tried that out in game, but it would be a fun thing to try. So these are, I think, a tier 4 unit for you, but they're very, very rare to find. So Numinas is where you're likely to find them. We do also have some Elven archers, because one of the things about the West, unlike the eastern parts of your territories, you tend to have more melee troops. You've got these Lindon guards, very, very sturdy glaive-wielding units. You've also got these mariners who are now charging into the fight with mail and sword. So you have fewer of the archers. In fact, all you have are a fairly basic Elven bows unit. They're not as versatile as some of the eastern archers you're going to find over in Lorien and Mirkwood. So definitely train them, but there's no need to train all of your Elven population on these Elven bows when you can train up a mannish settlement for these very cool-looking Elven foresters. These are kind of like rangers, so to speak. I also have, let's see, a couple of Elven riders. That's another thing that's a little different here. Now, they're not at their best here against pikemen, but I sort of lost track of what was happening, and so did manage to rush in some Elven wardens. But despite the fact that they're going against some tier 3 pikes from Tharbad, I don't know that we lost anybody here, so that went quite well. Elven riders, as you can see, just have a sword and a shield, but they're going to stand up to more punishment than you might expect. So the reason this fight is against Tharbad is because it's likely that you are going to come into conflict with this faction at some point. You're going to be expanding towards Rivendell, you're going to be fighting against Adunabar, but then Tharbad is going to be right there, and they may even have grabbed Ostenethil before you could. So you want to make sure that you prepare for that. They're going to potentially be a fairly large force by the time they attack you. So let's see, how's this fight going? One of the things that I noticed about this battle that was a little surprising to me was how many losses these Lindon guards were taking. There's only 16 of them left. I think they're going to be down to 14 by the time the battle is over. I thought they would have done much better, but they're fighting quite a few of these Mariner swordsmen from Tharbad, who, as you may be able to tell, do have a couple of throwing spears. So my guess is that between that and the few other archers that Tharbad does have, including these very respectable city longbowmen, if they're focus firing on my Lindon guards who lack shields, they are going to take losses. And those Mariner swordsmen are going to throw javelins and then charge in. So even though we're able to quite handily see off Tharbad, they are going to be stubborn, and you're going to take some losses if you're not careful. I could have been more careful here. Of course, I could have protected those Lindon guards better. Now, knowing that, I would probably target the Mariner swordsmen more consciously than I did in the past. But there we go. So we lost fewer than 100 men and elves all told, although more of those were elves than I would have liked, those losses. So I hope this has been helpful. Between the 3 videos there, I believe we've seen just about every Elven unit. There are a couple that we haven't covered. There is an Elven horse unit, as well as the tier 1 militia unit for the Elven. But otherwise, that just about covers the extensive types of troops that you can expect to train as the elves. So I hope you have found this interesting, and check me out in the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.